Welcome back to Panda Audiobooks. Jian Wushuang has left behind the continent he conquered and is now venturing into a truly massive and dangerous world. In our last episode, Wushuang consolidated his grand prize and set his sights on the next, much larger domain, a land rumored to hold the highest tier of geniuses and the deepest secrets. Today, the perilous journey begins. Chapters 71 through 75 follow Wushuang's long and arduous trip to this new domain. The journey itself is fraught with danger, forcing him to navigate treacherous landscapes, evade powerful, non-human threats, and possibly clash with rogue masters far stronger than the champions he just defeated. Wushuang must rely on his cunning and his immense, newly consolidated power to survive the passage and finally arrive at the ultimate proving ground. The challenge is immense, but the reward is destiny. Chapter 71 begins now. Chapter 71. 11-match winning streak. The battle continued. Jian Wushuang's arrogant words of all are welcome indeed annoyed the disciples of the Dragon Palace. Many disciples who had broken through the 5th level itched to have a try, which was as he expected. Based on the comprehension of realm, these disciples were almost all at the level of exceptional spiritual sea realm, while Jian Wushuang barely reached the 5th level, so many of the disciples who broke through the 5th floor are stronger than him. Nevertheless, his greatest strength was in his cultivation method, which had superior overall power. Relying on his absolute strength, he won the 5th confrontation, followed by the 6th and 7th challenges, until the 11th. Jian Wushuang won all 11 matches. Those disciples of Dragon Palace at the martial arts practice field were speechless in astonishment. It was nothing for Jian Wushuang to win 1 or 2 battles consecutively, but now he had won 11 battles successively. In addition to the first 3 disciples who were at the 4th level, the other 8 disciples were all at the 5th level. However, they were all defeated by Jian Wushuang. It is his power that makes this happen. His power is even stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. It's strange that he has so much power as he is only at the level of spiritual sea realm. He has completed 11 battles in a row, but his spiritual power has not diminished. Why? Did he not need to consume his spiritual power when confronting others? Everyone was astonished. They thought Jian Wushuang's strength and vast spiritual power were amazing. Needless to say, his strength was much stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. But it was also his vast spiritual power shocked others so much. Several battles among these 11 battles were bitter fights, so how much spiritual power would these successive battles consume? Usually warriors needed to stop and have a rest to recover their spiritual power after at most 3 battles. But what about Jian Wushuang? Keep fighting. After 11 battles without any pause, Jian Wushuang won all of them without any reduction in spiritual power. How could this happen? And he was actually still at his peak level. What kind of monster is he? All those watching thought that this was incredible. Who else wants to battle me for points? Jian Wushuang said confidently and looked around. The disciples of Dragon Palace looked at each other in speechless despair and nobody stood out. Winning 11 battles in a row, Jian Wushuang proved to all that he was strong enough, and those people who wanted to challenge him would surely lose face and worse, 1,000 points. For them, 1,000 points was a big deal. No one else. Seeing everyone's hesitation, Jian Wushuang nodded with satisfaction. However, as he was about to turn around and leave, an ethereal voice was suddenly heard. "It's very crowded here, isn't it?" The soft voice was followed by the arrival of a handsome man dressed in a luxurious robe who slowly appeared. Nangong Jie. Isn't he isolating himself? Why is he here? Ha ha, it must be the commotion. A burst of noise swirled all around, which made it clear that these disciples of Dragon Palace knew this handsome man. Jian Wushuang also looked at the man and found his appearance was almost perfect with slender physique, handsome face and a free and ethereal temperament. Soon after I finished my self-isolation, I heard that there was a newcomer in Dragon Palace and he said that anyone who had broken through the 5th level can challenge him. What arrogance! Nangong Jie smiled lightly, but his eyes were instantly locked on Jian Wushuang. Nangong Jie, my brother has said this, but these words are only for the disciples of Dragon Palace at the level of spiritual sea. So you, who has broken through 6 months ago, shouldn't be here. Wang Yuan couldn't help but shout. Most disciples of the Dragon Palace were at the level of spiritual sea realm, but a small part of them were at the level of gold core, and Nangong Jie was one of them. Oh, I do not know that your brother has made a distinction between spiritual sea realm and gold core. I am also the disciple of Dragon Palace who has broken through the 5th level, so it's okay for me to join this battle. Moreover, your brother just has a normal perception of the realm of heaven and earth, but he successively defeated so many disciples of Dragon Palace who are at the 5th level. It is precisely that his strength is much stronger than the others. I think his strength will not be weaker than a disciple at the level of primordial gold core if he goes all out. So it's quite fair for me to challenge him. Nangong Jie said. Exactly. This swordsman defeated so many disciples because that his strength is stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. Now Nangong Jie's strength is also stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. These two should have a battle. Immediately some disciples kicked up a fuss. You! Wang Yuan wanted to refute them. Wang Yuan, stop! Jian Wushuang waved one of his hands to interrupt him and continued, since I said that, I won't break my promise. Nangong Jie, it's okay to gamble with you, but the stakes are still only 1,000 points. 1,000 points. Nangong Jie raised his eyebrow and said, no problem. I'll start. Nangong Jie smiled thinly, and his figure began to slowly dissipate at this moment. Whoosh! A sword light appeared in front of Jian Wushuang suddenly. So fast. Jian Wushuang was greatly frightened. He knew sword principle of Gale, and was also good at speed, but the speed of Nangong Jie was so fast that he even did not know when his sword was drawn. The sword essence of earth was so strong that Jian Wushuang did not hesitate to defend with it. Clang! 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 Nangong Jie slashed his sword 10 times consecutively with increasing speed and power. Jian Wushuang went for broke to going all out with sword essence of earth to defend against Nangong Jie. However, he felt that he could not sustain this because the sword shadow was like thousands of poisonous snakes. Suddenly, pop! Nangong Jie's sword edge crossed Jian Wushuang's right-hand wrist with a very clear sword scar. The pain in Jian Wushuang's wrist made him loosen his grip of the triple kill sword. Bro Jr., are you okay? Wang Yuan, Yang Zixuan, and Su Ru immediately rushed over. I'm fine. Jian Wushuang shook his head and picked up triple kill sword again. Nangong Jie, the battle is just for learning from each other. You shouldn't hurt him so much. Wang Yuan shouted in a low voice. Oh, sorry, it's just an accident. Nangong Jie replied immediately, but his joking smile made it clear to everyone that he did it on purpose. Chapter 72, Scheduling a Battle. Damn it! Wang Yuan gnashed. Bro Senior, can I help you? Yang Zixuan said with an increasingly cold look on Nangong Jie. They all knew that Nangong Jie Gong did it deliberately. No, Jian Wushuang shook his head. He knew that Yang Zixuan had enough strength to defeat Nangong Jie, but he thought this was his own matter and he did not want others to help him. I lost this battle. 1,000 points, here you are. Jian Wushuang gave Nangong Jie 1,000 points directly without hesitation. After getting the 1,000 points, Nangong Jie didn't change his facial expression but touched his nose and said suddenly, Swordsman, do you want to fight with me one more time? Jian Wushuang was so surprised. Nangong Jie, don't go that far. Wang Yuan immediately shouted. Don't get me wrong. Nangong Jie shook his head and said, I intend to continue the battle for points, but this time the condition will be changed. For example, you will win as long as you withstand my swords for 3 times. What do you think about it? I can win after 3 swords. Wang Yuan immediately looked at Jian Wushuang in confusion. Disciples of the Dragon Palace around him all looked over and discussed this heatedly. What does Nangong Jie intend to do? Jian Wushuang will be the winner after fighting with him for 3 moves. In the past battle, Swordsman used nearly 20 moves before he won. What's wrong with Nangong Jie? Does he want to give his points to others for nothing? These disciples of Dragon Palace were confused over Nangong Jie's behavior, because in the past battle, Jian Wushuang endured nearly 20 moves before he won. Now he wanted to defeat Jian Wushuang with less than 3 moves. What a joke! If I agree with the battle, how many points will you bet? Jian Wushuang looked at Nangongjie calmly. 1,000 points is too few. I believe you have many points now because you have won so many battles before, so I will bet my 7,000 points, including my current points and the 1,000 points I won from you. Nangongjie said with smile. 7,000 points. People around he were all shocked. Nangongjie is too confident. How could he be so brave to bet 7,000 points in such an unfair confrontation? 7,000 points. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly with his pupils shrinking, but then he rejected, "Sorry, I'm not interested in it." What? Nangongjie changed his facial expression. He refused? It was incredible, someone around exclaimed. It's clear that the swordsman can win points without any effort, but he refused it. Is he a fool? Humph. You are a real fool. Nangongjie must have enough ability to bet on 7,000 points with the swordsman. In my opinion, the swordsman is really stupid if he agreed with the battle. Yes, Nangongjie absolutely has enough confidence in his strength. Many of these disciples of Dragon Palace were shrewd enough to see through the intention of Nangongjie. Jian Wushuang, of course, was not a fool. Humph. Wanting to set a trap for me to get more points from my hands. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. In the past battle, though Nangongjie did his utmost to conceal himself, Jian Wushuang saw the truth clearly. He did not do his best, and he even just used less than half of his strength. Jian Wushuang knew it clearly. It looked like Nangongjie beat him with nearly 20 moves in the last battle, but in fact, Nangongjie did it deliberately. Jian Wushuang had no doubt that if Nangongjie goes for broke, he could not withstand 1 move, let alone 3 moves. His comprehension for sword essence is much better than me, and he definitely has the strength to break through the 6th level. The 6th level. Yes, this was Jian Wushuang's assessment for the strength of Nangongjie. Nangongjie was at the level of Gold Core and his understanding of sword essence was at the 6th level of Dragon Gate. His strength could surely defeat him with no more than 3 moves. He rejected? He didn't fall into my trap. Nangongjie was very angry at this moment. How did he know that I deliberately concealed my strength? Or was he too cautious to use 7,000 points to bet with me? Nangongjie. Jian Wushuang's voice was heard again. Nangongjie could not help looking up. If you really want to bet with me, it's okay. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and continued, but today I battled with others many times and my spiritual power has been consumed greatly. My wrist is hurt, so I have no power to battle again. Therefore, we can conduct this battle in 3 months' time. 3 months. Nangongjie frowned. Of course, after 3 months, I will have a fair battle with you, and I will accept any points you want to bet. What do you think? Jian Wushuang said. Hearing these words, Nangongjie's eyes were bright. Deal. Nangongjie agreed quickly. Deal. Jian Wushuang nodded seriously. Hearing their words, people around were confused. Is this swordsman stupid? Having a fair battle with Nangongjie in 3 months? Points are also up to Nangongjie. Does he think that he can beat Nangongjie in 3 months? He is definitely crazy. Almost everyone thought Jian Wushuang was crazy and silly. After all, Nangongjie had great strength. Many disciples knew from the last battle that he could break through the 6th, and he was also an expert of the Gold Core realm. While Jian Wushuang just was at the level of Spiritual Sea realm. Even if his strength was great enough to fight with Primordial Gold Core, how was his understanding of sword essence? Jian Wushuang's understanding of sword essence could just narrowly break through the 5th level. What a big gap! Could he make up such a large gap in 3 months? What a joke! Ha ha! Nangongjie was very happy, and he laughed. Your words have been heard by so many people present. I will come see you in 3 months. After these words, Nangongjie turned around and left happily. As he was leaving, Nangongjie was still thinking about the scene in 3 months. This guy didn't know that I just showed a small part of my strength and I didn't show my perception of sword essence completely. I also didn't show my trump card. Even in this case, I beat him easily. How can he beat me in 3 months? Ha ha, come on. I'm looking forward to that day, but that day, I will bet much more than 7,000 points. Nangong Jie was full of confidence for the battle in 3 months. All those on the martial arts practice field looked at Jian Wushuang with pity in their eyes. However, no one noticed that a subtle smile appeared in the corners of Jian Wushuang's mouth. Chapter 73. Sword Skills Being Obtained. It was not long before Jian Wushuang left the martial arts practice field. Wushuang, are you sure that you can duel with Nangong Jie in 3 months? Wang Yuan could not help asking the question. I have already promised him. I can't break my word, can I? Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. But Nangong Jie is very strong. Wang Yuan said seriously. I know, Nangong Jie can break through level 6, said Xianxia. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded, but was not afraid. Take it easy. I promised I would duel with him and I'm confident of success. In 3 months you'll see. Jian Wushuang had a faint smile. He did not feel anxious. Perhaps 3 months was a short time for ordinary warriors, but for Jian Wushuang it was too long. It had only taken him 4 months before he understood what the sword essence was. It had only taken 4 months before Jian Wushuang was eligible to break through to the level 5 of the Dragon Gate. Perhaps, even Dragon Palace disciples would be shocked at his cultivation speed. He had cultivated by himself without any teachers or help for 4 months. Even so, great progress had been made, not to mention now in the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace was renowned as a holy place for cultivating. It was rich in resources. 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind, the secret land of heaven and earth, the secret pavilion. Besides, Jian Wushuang could learn from so many talents now by exchanging views. With such wonderful conditions for cultivation, he would certainly comprehend the realm of heaven and earth faster. That was why he was confident enough to duel with Nangong Jie in 3 months' time and had promised that no matter how many points Nangong Jie required, Jian Wushuang would agree. Anyway, nobody but Jian Wushuang himself knew the reason. Shortly afterwards, Jian Wushuang went to the secret pavilion again. He had hardly won 11 duels in succession when he lost one in the martial art practice field. Every time he won a duel, Jian Wushuang would get 1,000 points. So he had 10,000 points in total. Including the 2,000 points from his own, he had 12,000 points in total. He was very well off now. Surely now that he had enough points, Jian Wushuang would naturally buy whatever he wanted. Using 7,000 points, he bought the formless sword wave and 3 skills of the formless swordsmanship. Then he exchanged 1,500 points for the reincarnation sword skill in comprehending sword essence of earth. Reincarnation sword skill was a sword skill for defense. Sword essence of earth was the best for defense. After obtaining these 3 superb sword skill, Jian Wushuang bought 20 first-class divine pills with 400 points. Heavenly spirit pill was similar to spirit cultivating pill. Only by breaking through spiritual sea realm could warriors take heavenly spirit pill. Weaker warriors should take spirit cultivating pill. First-class heavenly spirit pill was the best in heavenly spirit pills. It was potent enough to produce the desired effect. In the outside world, first-class heavenly spirit pill was very rare with extraordinary value, but in the secret pavilion of Dragon Palace it only cost 20 points for 1 first-class heavenly spirit pill. Thus, Jian Wushuang exchanged 400 points for 20 first-class heavenly spirit pills. As soon as he had bought what he wanted, he returned to his manor. In the courtyard of the manor, Wang Yuan, Yang Zixuan, and Su Ru sat at the stone table drinking wine. From time to time they turned to look at Jian Wushuang, who was practicing his sword skill. BZZZ. Jian Wushuang happened to be aggressive with his firm sword shadow. It was quite easy for him to learn the first move of formless sword wave without stopping. The second, third, fourth, sixth move. Formless sword ripple was divided into 2 parts. Each part included 7 sword skills. However, Jian Wushuang was such a genius that he performed the first 6 sword skills easily. He has performed the 6th move. Wang Yuan was shocked. After having bought the sword skill, he performed the first 6 moves in merely 2 hours. Even if he had comprehended the sword essence of earth, he shouldn't have performed such sword tactics so fluently. Young Zixuan was a little surprised as well. After all, sword skills were combined perfectly using sword essence and swordsmanship. It was important to comprehend sword essence, but it was more important and difficult to grasp every move of the wonderful sword skills. Like a general warrior, even if he got the sword skills and had the appropriate sword essence, it would take a long time to learn and grasp the moves and skills of sword tactics. But Jian Wushuang was absolutely not an ordinary warrior. After having bought the sword skills, he performed the first 6 moves in just 2 hours with no difficulty. He is a genius, young Zixuan thought with eyes blazing like torches. Wushuang has a gift for sword principle. He's such a genius. If an ordinary genius wants to grasp the first moves of such advanced sword skills, he must learn for several days. Wang Yuan sighed. Jian Wushuang had hardly performed the 6th move of the formless sword wave when he stopped practicing. Formless sword wave is worth 5,000 points. Every skill or move is powerful enough, so I'll comprehend the sword essence of earth as much as possible. Jian Wushuang was quite satisfied. He had always been distressed for he could not comprehend the sword essence of earth fully without suitable sword skills. But now he did not need to worry. What a pity! Perhaps I cannot comprehend the sword essence of earth fully. Although I am trying my best, I cannot break through the 6th move, Jian Wushuang thought. He had grasped the basic skills of the 7th move but had not been able to perform the complete swordsmanship. Haste creates waste. I have to walk with a firm step. Jian Wushuang thought with a faint smile. Shortly afterwards he started learning the reincarnation sword skill. Early the next morning, Jian Wushuang came to the 4 temples. The 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind were renowned for their 6 strong temple masters, who would occasionally give instruction in the palace. Today, a master was giving lessons. Jian Wushuang went into the ground palace where many of Dragon Palace disciples sat on the ground. Some were discussing as they pleased. Jian Wushuang did not mind the disciples talking around him. He sat down and closed his eyes to cultivate. It was not long before a master appeared. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and turned to him. He was a middle-aged man wearing a golden robe. He looked quite kind. He seemed to be an ordinary person without excessive tyranny, but when Jian Wushuang first looked at this middle-aged man, he found himself deeply attracted by the master, as if the man had something magical. That is why he can give lessons in Dragon Palace. Although he showed no strength outside, he seemed stronger than Yu Rufeng, Jian Wushuang thought. Chapter 74. 3 months. The whole Earth Temple fell into complete silence immediately when the man showed up. The middle-aged man sat on the ground and started giving lessons. What he taught were some concepts and experiences. He occasionally performed a few movements of the Earth Essence realm. Every one of the disciples, including Jian Wushuang, listened intently. It was not long before Jian Wushuang felt puzzled about the lessons. He fell into deep thought. After an hour, the man stopped teaching. He waved his hands to the people in the palace before all the disciples on the ground left. Jian Wushuang rose to walk out of the palace slowly. He was in deep contemplation. He did not come out of it until he was far away from the palace. Is that it? That's the reason. A flash appeared on Jian Wushuang's face. His eyes were sparkling like fire. He turned to gaze at the Earth Temple and inhaled deeply. He was clear that though the middle-aged man had only taught for 1 hour, Jian Wushuang had still learned a lot. He had also comprehended unknown knowledge about sword essence of earth in his head. Perhaps this is why the 4 temples are called one of the 3 treasures of Dragon Palace. It was so helpful to listen to the lessons from the temple master. Jian Wushuang sighed. 4 temples of the 3 treasures of Dragon Palace did not require many points. Dragon Palace disciples could listen to their lessons whenever they wanted. But this did not mean the 4 temples were useless. Instead, the 4 temples were sometimes more helpful and larger than the secret land of heaven and earth and the secret pavilion. I did not comprehend a lot and had no teachers to ask before. I relied only on myself to cultivate. However, Everything I needed is now in front of me. Next I'll know what achievements I can make. Jian Wushuang held his hands tightly with eyes sparkling. From then on, Jian Wushuang was deeply focused on cultivating. His cultivation was very regular. When the temple masters of the Earth Temple and the Wind Temple in the four temples gave general lessons, Jian Wushuang would go and study by himself afterwards. Sometimes he would go to the martial arts practice field and watch the other disciples' fights. When he fought with others, he always kept his strength. As for the secret land of heaven and earth, he could not go there whenever he wanted. After all, although it was helpful for him to comprehend the sword essence there, he would think about the mechanism of it for a long time. Thus, Jian Wushuang went there once every 2 weeks in general. 3 months passed quickly. These were the most precious 3 months for any newcomer. One must know that almost everyone lacked in good teachers and cultivation resources before going to the Dragon Palace. So they began to learn considerably in the 3 months. In the history of the Dragon Palace, some disciples had been ordinary, but after the 3 months they showed significant talent and improved remarkably. Never mind Jian Wushuang, who had woken up his sword soul during the 3 months. How much had he improved? He was in the manner. His sword shadow was so swift that it was like lightning in the sky. A gust of wind passed. When he stopped performing, the wind died away. Everything fell into silence. No, this movement is still far from perfect. Jian Wushuang wrinkled his brows in concentration. Though it was fast enough, he was not satisfied with the movement he had just performed. I have completely grasped the 4th movement of the formless swordsmanship, but the 5th is still wrong. The 4th movement of the formless swordsmanship was named 100 variations, which he had completely grasped in 2 months. But the 5th. It was much more difficult than the 4th. The first 3 movements of the formless swordsmanship were very complicated, while the middle 3 movements were even more difficult. Never mind the last 3 movements. That's why the formless swordsmanship is renowned as the greatest sword skill in Qianzhong dynasty. Although the formless sword wave was also a sword skill, it only took him 2 hours to completely grasp all of the first 7 movements and perform the first 6 movements on the ground. But the formless swordsmanship was much more complicated than the formless sword wave. He had completely comprehended the 4th movements after 3 months. However, he did not understand the 5th. Wushuang. Wang Yuan hastily came in with his raspy voice, and Yang Zixuan and Su Ru followed him. What's the matter? Jian Wushuang turned to look at them. Wang Yuan approached Jian Wushuang and breathed for a while before he said, Nangong Jie has gone through the Dragon Gate Pass. Oh. Jian Wushuang was a little surprised, but immediately said with a faint smile, which level did he pass? The 6th. Wang Yuan looked serious and said, as we know, he has passed the 6th in less than an hour. It will not be long before he goes through the 7th, but he will stay there for a long time before he advances further. 3 months ago, I knew he could pass the 6th, but he did not try until today. It was obviously deliberate for him to go through the 6th today when you will fight with him. I think he was afraid you might flee away if he did so earlier. Yang Zixuan said. Timid Su Ru, who had been speechless, added, there's a threshold between the 6th and the 7th Dragon Gate. The level keeper of the 7th is much stronger than that of the 6th. He could fight with the level keeper of the 7th, which means he is very strong. Jian Wushuang listened carefully and he nodded slightly. Indeed, it was not a big deal for him to go through the 6th because they had already known he could pass it. But it was completely different for him to fight with the level keeper of the 7th. Nangong Jie's capacity to understand the sword essence is the best even among the disciples who have gone through the 6th. Yang Zixuan said. Wushuang, what's your plan? Wang Yuan turned to look at him. All I can do is take measures according to the actual situation. Jian Wushuang smiled. You have a big heart. Wang Yuan rolled his eyes. Jian Wushuang smiled. He did not feel anxious. He had passed the 6th level in Dragon Gate and fought sharply for a long time with the 7th level keeper. So what? So what? I'm not shocked by that at all. It's funny. It was because he had not gone through the Dragon Palace for 3 months. Otherwise, it was Nangong Jie who had to worry now. You 3 can talk while I have to go to the secret land of heaven and earth once more. Jian Wushuang said. He left to go to the secret land of heaven and earth. Wang Yuan and the others watched Jian Wushuang's back from afar. They were worried. Wushuang must be anxious. That's why he is going to the secret land of heaven and earth. I am afraid he's not confident about fighting with Nangongjie. Wang Yuan said seriously, I hope Nangongjie will not bet too many points. Otherwise it'll be your turn to win back the points for Wushuang. I do not mind fighting with him. But I am afraid Nangongjie dares not to fight with me, Xianxia said in a cold voice. Chapter 75. Battle for Massive Points. Despite it being early in the morning, there were many disciples of Dragon Palace, some of whom were even at the 6th or 7th level, gathered on the martial arts practice field. Many people wanted to watch as it was well known that Jian Wushuang and Nangongjie would fight here in 3 months. Have you heard? Nangongjie got past the 6th level in Dragon Gate. He even fought a close battle for a long time with a 7th level keeper. Of course. Nangongjie didn't fight earlier or later until the last day before the duel. His purpose was very clear. Look, he is coming. Nangongjie, in a luxurious robe with charming smile, and another 2 disciples came over side by side, slowly walking amongst all the disciples of Dragon Palace. The 2 disciples were well known in Dragon Palace, who both had passed the 6th level. You two, don't forget what I told you. Nangongjie talked with the 2 disciples in a low voice. Don't worry. We will never forget what we have promised. Not to mention that it is also important for us, one of them replied. 3,000 points. It is not a small number. I will not lend it to you easily if I didn't know your actual ability, the other one smiled. So, you two just enjoy the fight. As soon as the fight is over, I will return the 3,000 points with an extra 1,000 points.
Nangongjie smiled.
Of course. We have never doubted your ability. The 2 disciples smiled. They have both battled with Nangongjie, so they knew his ability. There was no point worrying. It was why they agreed to lend their points to Nangongjie. Not long after Nangongjie arrived at the martial arts practice field, Jian Wushuang also appeared, of course followed by Wang Yuan and others. Look! The newbie is coming. It seems that he is confident. Wouldn't a genius like him who is qualified to be a member of Dragon Palace be confident? What's more, he has been in Dragon Palace for 3 months, which is a time of great improvement. So as a newbie, he must have improved significantly in this period. Great improvement? So what? How far can he go in 3 months? He could get past the 5th level with difficulty 3 months ago. It is unlikely that he could reach the 6th level. He can only beat Nangongjie in his dreams. Yeah, he is a newbie after all. Hope he won't lose too badly. Guess how many points will Nangongjie bet with the newbie? The newbie has said in public that he will agree with any amount of points. Let's wait and see. He won't win anyway. It will be a lesson for him to be more humble as a newbie. Disciples of Dragon Palace on the scene spoke loudly without much thought, so both Jian Wushuang and Nangongjie could hear them clearly. Swordsman, you dared to come. Nangongjie laughed and looked at Jian Wushuang. I promised to fight with you 3 months ago, so I've come. Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Great courage. But you are a newbie after all, too naive. Nangongjie shook his head and said. Cut the crap, Nangongjie, how many points do you want to bet? Jian Wushuang asked. Don't worry. You are a newbie after all, so I won't go too far. Nangongjie grinned. I know you won 11 fight 3 months ago. Although you have been defeated by me, you won 10,000 points in the end. Plus you came to here to fight and won some points. So you have about 15,000 points. I have borrowed my friend's points, 12,000 in total. Let's bet 12,000 points. 12,000 points. Isn't this too much? All the people present were stunned. They all knew that Jian Wushuang got many points by fighting. But scores were very valuable and important in Secret Pavilion and Secret Land of Heaven and Earth. It must be difficult for him to take out 12,000 points. Isn't it too much? 12,000 points. 12,000 points were enough to exchange for several secret techniques or to go to secret land of heaven and earth 12 times. It was a large amount for any disciples of Dragon Palace. Nangong Jie had gone too far in betting 12,000 points. Do you think the points are too much? But you said yourself that you would agree to whatever bet I wanted. Nangong Jie put on an act and said, 12,000 points?
Około.
Jian Wushuang nodded his head directly. Ha ha, great courage. Nangong Jie said with a smile immediately. The drill ground was immediately filled with turmoil. He agreed. The swordsman dared to take it. It is 12,000 points. The swordsman has so many points. Is he being arrogant at his own cost? Seeing all the worried eyes, Jian Wushuang smiled secretly and turned to Wang Yuan and other two people. Bro Senior and Sis Junior, I need you to borrow me some points. Jian Wushuang said. He did not have 12,000 points, but he could borrow them. Do you have the confidence, bro? It is 12,000 points. Wang Yuan frowned and said, definitely. Jian Wushuang nodded. Okay, it is enough to hear that. I trust you. You can have all my 4,000 points. Wang Yuan said directly. I have exchanged for 2 secrets before, so I don't have that many. You can have my left 1,500 points. Yang Zixuan said. You can also have my 3,000 points. Su Ru said timidly. Enough. Jian Wushuang smiled and looked at his bros and sis gratefully. Jian Wushuang regarded the 3 people as his bros and sis the moment they lent their points to him without any hesitation. 12,000 points. Jian Wushuang took out his disciple's pledge. The points in the pledge were shown to everyone. Jian Wushuang looked at Nangong Jie with a threatening gaze. Nangong Jie, you looked for this fight yourself. Primordial Gold Core is a big deal. You got past the 6th level in Dragon Gate and fought closely for a long time with a 7th level keeper. Is that a big deal? I will test how much progress I have made in the 3 months by fighting with you. Come on. A 12,000 point battle would begin at any moment. And with that dramatic arrival, we conclude Chapter 75. Wushuang has successfully navigated the vast distance and countless perils, finally setting foot in the legendary name of New Domain Continent, e.g., Azure Heaven Domain. This new world is richer in resources, fiercer in competition, and holds the promise of the next major clue regarding his lineage and the heavenly creation skill. He has survived the journey, but the trials of this new land are about to begin. Join us next time for chapters 76, 77, 78, 79, and 80, as Wushuang makes his first moves in this colossal new domain, immediately encountering a new level of arrogance and a conflict that threatens to engulf him. Thank you for listening to Panda Audiobooks. If you are ready for the true grand adventure, please subscribe and hit that notification bell.